But I kind of reached a pinnacle in my career where I was one of the largest CPA firms in Cincinnati. I was being awarded, lots of great recognition, but there was an emptiness about it. It's like I wasn't making the profound difference in clients' lives that I wanted. And my largest client was driving me crazy, and I was tossing and turning, worrying about them. And I just got up and I thought, you know what? I need to let go of this business and I need to recreate it.
In this episode of Ethical Exits, we're thrilled to sit down with Mackey McNeill, a trailblazing CPA, award-winning author, and advocate for values-driven business. Mackey's journey is nothing short of transformative, from redefining traditional accounting practices to creating a model that empowers entrepreneurs with clarity, confidence, and the three freedoms: time, mind, and money. Join us as we dive deep into Mackey's inspiring story, how her personal experiences with money shaped her purpose, why she chose to transition her business internally, and her bold vision for the future of mission-driven companies. From actionable advice on strategic planning to reflections on resilience and leadership, this conversation is packed with insights for anyone looking to build or exit a business with impact. Let's get started. I think you're going to love it.
Did you know that Unilever's sustainable living brands, obtained through strategic acquisitions, expanded 69% faster than the rest of their portfolio? This business strategy isn't just for giants like Unilever. You too can execute a similar model to drive growth and impact. At Up & Over, we specialize in helping mission-driven companies grow by acquiring like-minded businesses. Ready to build your own portfolio of impact? With Up & Over, it's within reach. Visit upandoveradvisors.com to learn more.
Well, welcome everyone to Ethical Exits. It's our 5th episode, and we're so overwhelmed and overjoyed to have Mackey McNeill with us today. Mackey is a force within the B Corp movement, a very inspirational founder and leader. So we're super psyched to have you today, Mackey. Mackey is the founder of Mackey and the Prosperity People, a CFO firm dedicated to helping entrepreneurs achieve freedom of mind, time, and money. A CPA, a PFS, and award-winning author of the Prosperity Playbook, Mackey's insights have been featured in Inc., the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and under her leadership, Mackey became one of the region's first certified B Corps and has earned multiple Real Leaders Impact Awards, a spot on Inc. 5000 and Inc. Power Partner Awards. While she's not guiding financial growth and prosperity and mindfulness for all of those around her, Mackey enjoys life on her permaculture homestead, Red Sunflower Farm, cooking from her garden, exploring the woods, and spending time with her cherished grandchildren. Welcome, Mackey.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah and Caitlin. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Oh, we're so psyched to have you. So typically, Mackey, on this podcast, what we do is we talk about M&A. Right? The whole goal of this podcast is to talk about how to pursue an ethical exit. And all of our guests so far have talked about that theme, talked about how they pursued exits for their mission-driven companies or the different paths we took. Last week we had, or our last episode, we had Cameron Medill, who talked about selling his company to a cooperative. And I think largely that's what we want to talk to you about today and talk about those themes and how people might pursue an exit, especially with your background. I know you participated in an exit, you've transitioned your company in some fairly significant and inspiring ways. So I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about that in context of time. So to be honest, we're recording this episode on November 14th, so a week after this election, and we won't actually air this episode. It won't be publicly made available till December. So likely the first week of December. So we might be in a different spot there mentally, emotionally, but I still wanted to kind of hold space for folks as they're listening to this in context and be honest about where we are. I think that's just a responsible thing to do. And you've agreed to that. So we'll still be kind and soft with each other because it's still brand new and nobody knows what this really means. But I would like to kind of broaden the scope of the conversation to talk about that kind of more of the themes that we're talking about today, kind of in context. But Before we get into all of that, Mackey, we do want to start with our traditional question that we always start and open these episodes with. And that's where we just want to get to know you a little bit about who you are. And the way that we do that is through your core values.
Mhm.
So, Mackey, who are you and what values guide you most deeply? And how have they shaped your approach to business and to your life?
Well, thank you for asking that. Who am I? Well, that's a great question. Well, just like everybody, I'm something from where I began, and I'm something of what I've grown into. I
Mm-hmm.
began, one of my stories is that when I was 5, my mother told me that I was adopted. And that
Oh.
meant the reason that I was adopted is that my parents didn't have enough money for a baby. So I have been fascinated with money since I was
Mm.
5. I realized that if money meant that you couldn't keep your family, then I needed to know about money. I needed to have money. And so when I would get a quarter, I would actually walk down to the savings and loan and put it in my passbook account. I had a
Mm.
passbook account since the time I was 5.
Mm.
I also had another big impact was my dad went bankrupt as an entrepreneur. So
Mm.
I lived through that with him, and I noticed that he was very good at his business, but he was simply lousy with money. And then I grew up in a time when women had really kind of two choices, being a nurse or a teacher. But thankfully I was gifted this teacher who said to me, when I was telling him I didn't know whether I wanted to be a nurse or a teacher, and I knew I didn't want to be a nurse really because I didn't want to give shots. And he said, young lady, if you were to go into medicine, you would be a doctor. And it was a
Whoa.
profound statement because I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but if I could be a doctor, I could be anything. So why not a CPA? And that became my
Mm.
calling. I'm going to learn the about accounting. I'm going to learn the language of business, become a CPA, and help owners and founders avoid my dad's fate and instead
Mm.
thrive and prosper. And that has been my mission since I started college. I have lived it in a variety of ways until I'm here now.
Wow, fascinating. So I love that. That's what you, Caitlin and I really are trying to get to the heart of is like not only what do you care about, but why do you care about it? And you just nailed that, Mackie. You nailed that, man. So the financial literacy and understanding finance, money, being comfortable with money, knowing how it works, how to leverage it, impacted your life significantly in two ways. One that you were adopted, your family, your family that birthed you couldn't keep you, so that was really foundational. And then your adopted family, your adopted father, right, that
Mhm.
also caused a disruption in your new home as well.
Yeah.
So wow, huge. That totally lines up with me. And I saw your most recent post where you talked about your aunt was
Yeah.
really helped you understand a little bit of financial literacy. So maybe even helped you set up that bank account when you were 5 because there's no way
She
you went down
did.
there.
She was the one who told my mother, you take her down and open that savings account. And
Yeah.
we did.
That's amazing. And I think that we're still learning those lessons. I just read just yesterday, household debt and has reached almost $18 trillion, right?
Mhm.
A lot of us still don't understand how money works and still struggle with that, especially the young people and with access to credit cards, right? So super cool. So that's excellent. So talk to us about your journey of building your CPA firm. And you talked about spreading the 3 freedoms of prosperity. What
Yes.
does that mean? And what have you been doing since you started that bank account when you were 5?
Yes. Well, that's a great question, Hannah. So I'll tell you, my career is kind of in the 3 sections, but my first rendition was I came out of school. I thought I'm a CPA. I'm going to help owners thrive and prosper. But what I've been taught is how to be a CPA. So I did that and I
Mm-hmm.
liked it. I mean, I helped people save money on taxes and occasionally I could make a difference in their business. But I kind of reached a pinnacle in my career where I was one of the largest CPA firms in Cincinnati. I was being awarded, lots of great recognition but there was an emptiness about it. It's like I wasn't making the profound difference in clients' lives that I wanted. And my largest client was driving me crazy and I was tossing and turning, worrying about them. And I just got up and I thought, you know what? I need to let go of this business and I need to recreate it because CPAs really don't make financial transitional or foundational difference for their clients. They help them in a lot of different ways, but they do not make a profound difference and change their lives and help them think differently. Clients have to think differently and they have to make different kind of decisions to really drive their business forward. So I needed a whole new way of working with them. And I couldn't do that from the standpoint of running one of the largest CPA firms in town. So I walked away from my largest client. I was never very unhappy about it. It was a wonderful day. I literally took him to lunch and said, you need to find somebody else. I took another look at my clients and I divided them into those I enjoyed working with and those I didn't, and sold another third of my practice. And then I used that money to reinvent my business. And from there, I said, what do clients really want? And I thought, clients worry about money. They don't know how to make good decisions. They don't know how to save. They don't know how to really operate their business in more effective ways. How do I develop a set of tools, systems, and processes that show them what's happening in their business so they can make better decisions, so they can hold their agency and have power? And I've seen tremendous changes. I've seen clients go from having one location to 7 using this process. I've seen them come to me, and after 30 years of never making more than $125,000 a year in profit, make $1.2 million in profit. I've just seen people once they understand more about what's happening in their business and they can see that and make better decisions. I've helped people with family transitions where they've come in and it's like, there's no money to make this family transition work. But we make some, we put some systems in place. We help them see what's really happening in the business. They start making better decisions. Not only are they able to transition, but then the business begins to grow and prosper in ways it never did before. So what I know is that with the right tools, systems, and processes, clients really can understand what to do about their business to drive it forward in a much more powerful way. And that's what I love about it. We change people's lives. We do help them live at that intersection of time freedom, mind freedom, and money freedom.
So talk to me a little bit more about that, because when you're a traditional CPA firm, as as I think about it, and I think is what you kind of touched on, you're like living in spreadsheets. It's black and white, right? It's financial reporting, and there's not a lot of shape beyond that, right? And I think that's what you were mentioning that you were really struggling with, is you didn't really feel like you were making an impact beyond just making the numbers look nice, right? And helping people with their taxes. So as you transition into this new business model, it sounds like it's more of a holistic consulting company. Is that correct? You have different expertise and personnel beyond bean counters, if I can refer it to that way?
And to some extent, we've taught bean counters not to just count beans. That's the other thing. Some people know that they're not making a transformational difference. The accounting is about, I drank the Kool-Aid and I thought, if I just get people better information, they'll make better decisions. But they don't know what to do. Nobody's been taught them the same things that I know about accounting, or any accountant knows about accounting. We can read a financial statement. We can tell them what's happening. But even then, there's so much more information available in terms of trending and how do you begin to forecast and how do you use metrics and how do you build accountability in your team. And all these systems have to be integrated so they work together. And I had a big aha when I hired my first strategic planner. We hired a planner and she came in and we did this rah thing and it was all exciting. And then she left and I'm like, never did she ever look at my financial statements. And I'm like, there was no connection between the possibility of where we are now. She didn't think that was an inconsistent idea. I thought it was. And then the strategic plan we put together. But somewhere along the line, to get to that strategic plan, we got to connect those dots. So I thought that's what we should be doing. We should be helping people, because it's not about where we're going to be in 3 or 5 years. The question is, where am I going to be next year? And what am I going to do next quarter to make next year? And then how does next year build on the year after and so forth? And really bringing it into this moment and this time, and then being able to monitor our progress so that we can see, am I on plan, off plan? What different decisions do I need to make? And once people get in this cycle and they get in a rhythm of looking at their data in a different kind of way, understanding not only their history, but their forecast and seeing where they're going, they can make some very profound differences. Engaging your team, bringing them along, can also be super powerful.
For retention and empowerment of your staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So diving a little bit deeper into the impact that you were looking to make, because you were making plenty of good money, right? with your large CPA business you built in Cincinnati, you had some good clients, you were doing good quality work for these clients, you're being well paid for that. But you felt so there was something in you that wasn't alive. right?
Yeah,
It was,
absolutely.
and so as you transition, kudos to you for having such guts and determination and taking such a risk to say no to something, hoping that another door would open, right? And it certainly did. But as you're working with these new set of clients, you're still performing similar functions. You're helping them understand their books. You're helping them prepare their taxes, do traditional CPA things. But what other kind of impacts are you able to make, or are you helping people make? What values or what missions are you helping them enable through better strategic planning and better understanding of what it really is going to take to get from here to here beyond financial growth? Like I heard you say, client went from one location to multiple locations, 150,000 in revenue to over $1 million in revenue. But what else is behind there that's enabling that? Or what else are they achieving? What are you working on, Mackey, from an impact perspective?
Yeah, well, it's not our job to tell them what their impact is. And I would say that we are doing some of the same things. We do tax work for our clients that we are CFOs for, because we integrate all the different aspects of finance together for them. But we don't start where CPAs start. What we start with
Mm,
is, where are you? What
mm,
is your big idea? What is your passion? Where do you
mm,
want to go? How many hours a week are you working? What are you
mm.
doing in the business? Most business owners are doing things that aren't their best and highest use. So do they want to focus on empowering themselves around time first? Do they want to empower themselves around money first? Do they want to empower themselves around getting a little more of their purpose into their business? That's not us to decide. Our job
Got
is
it.
to listen and to see where they want to go, and then to build a financial format that helps them see, are they on or off track? Because
Mm,
most business owners don't know how to read even basic financial statements, and often they'll just, every once a year I go to my tax accountant, they do my return, and I don't understand how much tax, why I have to pay so much tax. And I'm like, there's so much rich information in your financial system if you just knew how to extract it. But so we start with a totally different perspective. Where are you going? And then we're meeting with our clients once a month to say, here's where you're on track, here's where you're not on track. What kind of
mm,
different decisions do you make? What's
mm,
important here? And
mhm,
and then we are updating that, of course, once a year. Once a year, we're saying, okay, well, here's what happened last year. Let's put together the next year plan.
mhm.
Mhm.
Excellent. So I think that's really helpful because I think a lot of people in the B Corp movement, I think maybe even us, we think that we can only work with other B Corps. We can only work with other mission driven companies. We want to niche down and we want to empower them. But I think what you said is really important. It's not so much, you're not trying to control those outcomes for them. You're just trying to enable them. But reflecting back on your company, Mackey, what are you guys trying to do? And what is your impact? What is your mission?
Well, our impact is exactly with our clients.
Mm-hmm.
When we work with somebody and they go from being kind of, I don't want, what's the right word? They go from being, they're working hard, they're really committed, they have their purpose. I love the B Corp movement because purpose is like really inherent, it's measured. But I have rarely met a small business owner who doesn't have some sort of purpose other than profit.
Mm,
So we want to know that, because that's what their driving force. Being a business owner is hard. And if
yeah.
you don't have that purpose beyond profit, I think it can be confronting to you in so many ways. I mean, that's the juice that gives you the desire to get up every day. So
Mm,
every time we take a business owner from kind of what I would say, like in the fog around finance, to being clear and having clarity and confidence, we've changed their life. We've changed their life with their family. We've changed their life with their team. We've changed their life in their community. So we see
mm,
the impact as like throwing pebbles into a pond and creating a tsunami. You know,
mm,
every time we change one life, we literally change multiple lives, because that's
mm.
how many impacts a business owner has. And so the more
Absolutely.
business owners we work with, the bigger our impact.
Absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful transition into what I wanted to talk about in this kind of larger context of where we are
Mhm.
and what has transpired with this last election cycle. Because I do think largely, how do I want to frame this? That that where we are right now with Trump being reelected and with the decisions that we made on a national level and public policy, relying on those institutions to move us forward, when I think about the core tenets of the B Corp movement, people, planet, profits, right, we're not going to be able to rely on those forces as much. And I do think, and I've always thought that capitalism is a very powerful model.
Mm.
It's a very powerful model for change, right? And it's a very powerful model for progress. So I do think, and I'm curious on your thoughts on this, if we're not able to rely on our public institutions as much, and it will be private companies, I think, who can really move us forward, and keep us on track with some of the goals that we have to fight climate change, to increase wealth equality amongst us, to reduce, to improve humanity, just full stop, right? How do you see that the B Corp movement or mission-driven entrepreneurs or impact entrepreneurs, small businesses, folks like you and I, how can we work together to further amplify and accelerate our missions to stay on track?
I think community is super important, Hannah, but let me just start a little different place. And I would say,
Yeah.
My fundamental belief is the universe is always conspiring for my highest good, no matter what the external events tell me. So I look at it this way. It's my job to go inside of myself and say, okay, if the universe is always conspiring for my highest good, this isn't an outcome I wanted, but how do I accept it? And then what is mine to do? What is mine to do? What is mine to do? And that's what is important to me, is to know I can make an impact. With my little company, we have a sustainable, this building that we're in won the Sustainable Development of the Year award from the local AIA. They said if a company Mackey's size can do it, anybody can do it. We think that because we can't make a big impact, we can't make an impact. But a lot of small businesses can make huge impacts. And unlike a publicly traded company, a small business isn't beholden to the next shareholder report. Those companies are defined by the expectations of the market. We're not. So I don't have I put solar panels on my house and my, the top of this roof years ago. When I put this building in place, we put a geothermal system in. We did a lot of things that cost a little bit more money, so we, and we had to be then very efficient about other things. We came in within budget, but we also had an amazing development, and we made an impact. Was it as big as I'm possible of making? It was mine to do. This was mine to do. I can do it. And I can actually, people come in here. We still have pictures up from when we bought the place and what we did, so that we can inspire others to make those choices. And I walk them into the kitchen and I say, this is recycled plastic on the floor. And they look at it and it's like, well, it's really beautiful. I'm like, yes, it is. And, so there are choices that people can make, and we all make choices every day. In terms of how I personally live, I live on 35 acres. My husband grows most of our food. We have our own chickens. We have our own eggs. I don't eat from the industrial food chain, and I'm very healthy. And I think that we all have a choice. If we're more connected to nature, if we're more willing to be present to the fact that we are connected to everything on the planet, we can make a choice just with how we choose to live our lives and eat our food every day. So there are so many choices available to us. How we invest. Do you screen your portfolio? How do you invest in the activities of your business? So many choices every day that you make have an impact.
I love that, Mackey. I love starting small. There's those sayings of like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? It's just the small stuff, it's the intentional stuff. And I really think about what you've done with your career and with your companies. You've been highly intentional. You've allowed yourself to put your heart maybe ahead of your intellect, right? Or like what would be a smart decision versus what would feel best, right? It feel best for you. So I really admire that. And I did read somewhere that someone said something about, Trump doesn't control what you do, or his administration doesn't control what you do every day. You still have choices, right? And you can still continue to show up. And I think that's exactly what you said. And I also believe very strongly that it's not about, and I think that maybe this is something else I wanted to ask you about. It's not a browbeating exercise, you know? It's the small signals of leadership, the small ways that the tail can wag the dog. It's not about pointing fingers and saying you're wrong. Like your thinking is incorrect. My thinking is superior over yours. So, and I think that you're talking about that, like just through the small demonstrations of how you live your life, like bringing in clients and showing them the floor, right? They maybe have never even thought about sustainable building practices, but those little things, right? Those waves, those pebbles in the lake, they reach the other side, right?
Yeah. And I wanted to speak to something you mentioned, Hannah. Bringing heart is to me, it's the most natural thing in the world, because what otherwise we're just making choices in silos of intellect. I mean, really, our brains are kind of crazy. Brains need to be at the servant of the heart, not the opposite way. We have it opposite. Brain, we put our heart and say, well, maybe in a little bit, the heart comes first and the brain serves the heart. And that's where we all should be coming from. And
I love that.
yeah. And I
I
think
love that.
we make better decisions. We're not silos. We need to think about integrating our lives with everything we do.
I love that. And I think that speaks to, I think, the choice that you made, right? Going back to that day where you woke up in the morning, you called your biggest client, right? Your anchor client,
Yes.
And, right, the guy that was like really running the lights, right? And in some respects, right? And you had the gusto and the bravery to lead with your heart, to have faith, to take that risk. So, Mackey, I think my thought is that this is and I think that maybe this gets to also what you said about how the universe provides, right? And it never puts us in a position like we're always moving forward. It may be dirty and muddy, and it may not look like progress, but progress isn't linear. That's not how it works. Is that this might be a defining moment for a lot of people, right? And I think that it could really bring a lot of us together and coalesce, maybe even move progress forward faster. I think that this might actually move people more into, okay, now I have to really do something. I was maybe waiting on this. Yeah, I was waiting on the sidelines and I was thinking someone else is going to take care of it, right? Right? But no one's coming to save us, right? It has to be us. So what would you say to folks, Mackey, that might be in a similar position you were all those years ago, who are just maybe struggling with their lack of purpose or with their lack of connectivity to their purpose? They have it, they feel it, but they're not acting on it. What would you say to those folks?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a necessary leap of faith. There was for me when I had as you said, I had a strong business. I was making good money. I had nothing to complain about. From a traditional standpoint, actually, there are people who thought I'd lost my mind. But I looked at it as I had refound myself. I had really, really engaged. And I think you have to look at what quality of life do you really want to live? Do you want to live? I was burning myself out, working hard, and wasn't really delivering my purpose. I wasn't making a profound difference for people. Now I work half as much. I make a much more profound difference. I'm making just as much money. Was it hard? But yes, but I got to create something totally new. And which is, I love to create stuff totally new. So that was all for me. And then once I began to see the change that happened in our clients, it was like that. But alone was enough energy to keep me going. And yes, there were many times. Actually, I had a CPA that I was talking to at one point. He had the nerve to say to me, "You can't make this happen. Why don't you sell this business to me? I'll make it happen." And I'm like, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. This man telling me that I couldn't do it. I'm like, you just tell me I can't do something and you watch me. I'm like, you're done, man. You're out of here. Don't stuff like that. So I think what do you believe in? If you believe it strong enough, if you vision it, we can manifest. We are all manifestors. We have to get out of our fear. We cannot manifest from fear. We have to stay out of our fear. Put your meditation practice, get your mindfulness practice working. Sit down every day and be still and be calm and focus on what you want to create and begin to believe that you can create it. It's powerful. We're all creators. We can all take action.
What I love about that is I think that messaging is so Mackey, and you have been there. You have been in that mind space for years, right? So I was thinking about your TED Talk and all the presentations you do and all the groups you belong to and all the people who look to you in those rooms and see you as an example, a thriving example of something that's possible. And you give them real tangible insights on how to get there. And again, like you said, it's not it's not like it's not rocket science in that sense. It's just, you just got to go forward. You got to go for it. You got to get clear and then go and then just keep moving forward. Right. So that was one of the things I was curious about, in light of these recent changes, as you go back on the speaker circuit, your dance card is usually full. You have lots of people who want to hear from you. It doesn't sound like your messaging will change at all. You don't have to change anything that you've been saying to people. It's the same message.
I think probably the one thing, I don't usually talk about manifesting when I speak, but I think I need to make sure that people know that they have the power. I would say something very close to what you said, Hannah. We are the ones we've been waiting for. There isn't anybody else to wait for. We are the ones. So we have to look in our hearts. What are we here to do? What is my sole purpose? Why am I here on this earth at this time? Do I believe I believe that I can make a profound difference while I'm here. And I'm going to deliver on that purpose. And I'm going to keep moving forward. And when I hit a roadblock, it may be the universe is telling me that I need to turn around. And it may be that the universe is giving me an opportunity to say, there's something that I need to tweak. So that's all again, it's an inner journey to look again and say, is this a course correction? Is this a turnaround? What is it for me? But we all have our own wisdom and we need to tap into it and own it.
I love that. I also feel called to, I think that's so super powerful, and it has been really impactful and really true in your journey. And I can see how you're helping others along that path as well. Caitlin and I, in our business, we're really focused on helping businesses accelerate their mission through M&A. We believe that this model of growth, of acceleration that has traditionally been used in some ways against us. I think it's fair to say it that way, that these models have been used by large, very powerful people whose only interest is to get richer, and they don't care about much other than that. Really, it's about short-term gains. And I know when we spoke with you earlier, you talked about like your transition planning and how you're thinking about your own ethical exit. What's next for Mackey? And I know you've kind of stepped back. You have people who are really running the business day to day, which is great. And you've manifested that. You put yourself in that position and you have really great people working for you. But thinking through that and these models, how do we also amplify each other? So beyond the internal work of manifesting for ourselves in our intimate circle, how do we reach out? What are the different models of acceleration or growth or scale that you think that are available or people should pursue in order to grow these movements, to help companies like yours grow?
Well, that's a great question. Would say is I think that you have to, in terms of how people transition or how they use M&A to grow, for me, the first thing you have to think about is, what are my values? Where am I going? What's important to me? And I find if it's, that has to be the most important first clarifying point. For me, I want this way of working to live. So there are many people that I might consider selling to that are just a no for me. Because they're just interested in buying a client base, putting their spin on it and moving it forward. I'm not interested in that. We do live at this intersection of heart and business, and that is embedded in our team, and that's how we work. And for me to sell outside, so my decision has been to sell inside. And that's why I decided the most important thing is for me to be able to walk out of this business and for it to retain its character and its values. So I started that process 14 years ago, and I went through a process. It's on our website called Take Back Your Time. And I looked at what was I doing? What did I need to do to be less involved in this business day to day? And I made a decision. And then after 5 years of working, every year I would refine my plan, set my quarterly objectives on how was I empowering the other people more in my business.
Excellent.
And taking myself out of the cornerstone. I took a 2-month sabbatical and I went away. I did not check email. I did not call in. I did not communicate with my team at all. And I came home to see what happened. And it was very informative. Everything went well, but they didn't develop any new business. So I thought, that's what they need to do. They need to work on their business development process. So it was not really helpful, to see what was missing still. So I began to work on that. And then as that began to take shape, I began to say, well, other people can do that, who can make that happen, and to walk away yet again. So I think we all have that opportunity. It's about being intentional, deciding that that's important to you. For me, as I look at the marketplace, co-ops are an interesting option.
Yeah.
Not a fit for this business. And ESOP is an interesting option, not a fit for my business. So private equity is not a fit for my business for a variety of ways. Selling upstream is not an option for my business, because in both of those cases, I'd lose the values of the firm. The last two, they'd lose the values of the firm. So that left me with a very clear, I need to make sure this team can take it to the next level. And I need to, if I'm here, they look to me for the answers. I always say to clients, you can be a fulcrum or you can build a wheel. If you're the fulcrum, everything goes through you. And that's the way a lot of business owners run their business. Everything goes through me. I'm in control. What's that about? I don't know. It's a good way to drive yourself crazy. Why don't you build a wheel? It's the strongest form in the universe. Distribute heavy lifting. Get people to work together. Build a true team. And then walk away.
What is your model of succession then? If you're not doing a co-op, you're not selling to your employees, you're not giving them equity. What's the model?
Yes.
Oh, you are. Okay. Okay. Excellent.
No,
but
not through those two forms.
Okay. Can you explain the model you're going to use, Mackey?
Well, it's just a transition model from, I'm going to be, of course, I've got some tax, still got my own tax experience. So I've got a variety of ways I'm looking to make a tax efficient transition from this business to the next generation. So it's about who are the people who are going to be owners, putting them in place, and then creating a transit. There's already been 2 new owners that have come in. I still own the majority of the firm, but there's 2 others that own portions of the firm, and that'll continue on over the next few years.
Excellent. Yeah, when we talked to Cameron about he transitioned his company to a cooperative, as I mentioned earlier, one of the key benefits that he mentioned, and there's so many, right? And you touched on them too, rather than looking externally, look internally, right? And empower people, right? He also talked about the decoupling of leadership from transfer of ownership, and that can take a longer period of time. And you mentioned your timeline. It's been a very long time, but you can slow walk that. It's not so immediate. It's not just one day you walk in and you say, hey, we sell the company. Here's your new boss.
But that's what people try to do. People,
yes,
they want to sell out. Even if you want to sell to somebody else, you're not going to sell tomorrow. I mean, I've had people call me up and says, I'm tired of this business. I want to sell in 6 months. I'm like, well, I don't know who you're going to sell to, but you're not going to get a good price and you're not going to make a good deal.
Yeah.
Because things don't happen like that.
Right. You lose a lot of control. What are your thoughts, Mackey? I think about this too on the other side for folks who are looking to grow, right? You're not looking to acquire other companies. Rather, you're looking to exit out or succeed from your own company. A lot of what Caitlin and I talk about with different companies is this kind of concept. I like to refer to it as playing inside or outside baseball. Are you offensive or are you defensive? Are you looking to only source or partner with other companies who have the same values? Or are you looking to acquire another company that doesn't have the same values and you're going to disrupt them, right? So there's these models, there's these folks that are going out there that are rolling up in vertical. So the other CPA firms that are buying other CPA firms, civil engineering firms buying other civil engineering firms. Very simple, strategic acquisition, but they're turning them into ESOPs as they buy them. and they're reinvigorating their culture, and they're bringing more of a mission to it. When I think about, again, this larger context we're in, I feel like we have to be more on the offensive.
Yeah.
Right? We have to kind of be take maybe a slightly different position than where I think that traditionally we take a position we're more defensive. We want to protect, right? Rather than do the opposite of that, or like conquer cities. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it goes back to what is it you want? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And what is it that you want to do? I mean, I think that if you take a bunch of civil engineering firms and wrap them all up and make them into an ESOP, that's a great vision.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to do that. Transitioning cultures is hard. So, but some people are better at it than others, I would say. But that would take, again, some very intentional, some, very clear, like this is what I'm going to do and this is how we're going to do it. And then some, sticking with it. I think, I don't have any objection to anything that somebody would want to do. I think it just has to be what they want.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too in the larger context for mission-driven companies servicing not only businesses but also consumers, right? Having more ethical options available on the market, right? Doing business with you, Mackey, I think feels a little bit different than doing business with a traditional CPA firm, right? There's different impacts that result from that, from the choices we make, from voting with our dollar, which I think is also super relevant in the time we're in. And reflecting on, again, this period of time that we're in with this recent election, there's been a lot of analysis on how messaging went wrong, which I think is a kind of a correlation back to the businesses that we run. And you are a communicator, you are a public speaker, you are messaging, to the world. That's part of your mission and your purpose, and you're excellent at it. And I think that as pundits and other analysts are trying to understand how the messaging went wrong, right? Even looking at outside of, the traditional Democratic progressive channels, MSNBC, Michael Moore, these kind of folks, that we're familiar with, but also like the Lincoln Project, right? And how they try to be more subversive, and maybe how that was wrong because we didn't widen the tent. We actually shrunk it. Right? Tradition, some groups that maybe we feel more aligned with politically didn't go our way. I think that there could be some lessons, or we should be paying attention to that as mission-driven impact entrepreneurs. How do we bring more people in our tent? Because if we're successful, it's not just about our own impact; it's encouraging others to get on the train too, right? So what are I know that's maybe hasn't been something you've been thinking about, but maybe it has been. What do you think some takeaways could be from that, and how do we bring a bigger coalition around these ideas and these ideals and these missions that we care about collectively?
Well, I think that each of us have a variety of impacts every day. When I first became a B Corp, in Kentucky, the person that runs the county is called the county judge executive. They're not a judge, but they're the head of the county commission. So he was here actually at that time chaired the local land conservancy, and he was here for a meeting with them and with that group. And I said, "Oh, by the way, Judge, you have the pleasure of the first B Corp in your region is in your county." And he looked at me and he said, "What's a B Corp?"
Yeah.
Perfect opportunity to educate somebody. But I have been at the place where I've been educating people around ideas that they thought were weird for years. So it's okay with me, So when I told him it was about purpose and profit, he just kind of looked at me like I must have three heads. But I wrote my first book, The Intersection of Joy and Money, in 2002. And at that point, I advocated socially responsible investing. In other words, investing in a way that was consistent with your values. Yeah. At that point, less than 1% of all assets were invested in social responsible investing. And when I actually had reporters that would call me and said, "We want to have you on, but we don't want you to talk about that weird social responsible investing stuff," which they now call environmental sustainability and governance.
Yeah, ESG. Yeah.
But do you know what the data is as of 2020? It's 40%, almost 40% of all assets are screened for ESG. Now that's so I was talking about it when it's weird. It's not exactly weird anymore. So we have to own that just because somebody else thinks it's weird doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're the visionary and you need to just, if it's in your heart and that's what's true for you, tell other people. Give them
Absolutely.
that clarity. Give them that vision.
Yeah, and again, I think we have to stay away from, being holier than thou or browbeating,
Mhm.
right? And personally attacking others. I think this play, I just saw it today. The Onion bought InfoWars in the auction, and we bought this site. They're going to totally redo it. And every town for gun safety will be one of their primary sponsors, advertisers on the relaunch site. And of course, every town for gun safety came after Sandy Hook. So there's a lot of things going there. And The Onion has just been a classic satirical publication that's made fun of everybody. It's very interesting to see how will that work? Like these non-traditional modes of communication. And I think you use weird. I don't know if you're using that on purpose, but Tim Walls, you know,
Because people have called me weird. Whatever.
maybe that landed for you when Tim Walls started using that, like this is just weird, So I think that'll be interesting. I think those are really interesting challenges for us moving forward. I really appreciate your leadership, Mackey, and everything you've done for your local community, for everyone that you come in contact with, for you being weird, for you having these ideals and sticking with them. And taking risk in this environment, especially in your environment, this rigid, hyper-capitalist, quote unquote space of being a CPA. Tremendous leadership. So super grateful for you. We want to wrap up this podcast with two more questions for you. I would love to know what you're doing next, Mackey. So I know you're still kind of working in the business. You're doing a lot of speaking engagements, but what does the future look like for you? What's your next step?
Well, I have been working on that. And I think that I've put it into three pieces. The question is, can I remember what those three pieces are? One was, I'm a creative, so I will continue to create. And sometimes I like to create by just walking out in the garden, see what's in the garden, and I create a meal out of it. That's creating. But, I will continue to create and innovate inside of business because that's just who I am. So I don't know what that'll look like exactly, but making sure I'm creating. I'm also creating an environment for my grandchildren. I have two grandchildren. They're 6 and 8. They are high priority in my life, and I spend time with them every week, and so finding that creativity, exploring my inner world, making sure I'm staying true to myself and true to my values, exploring outside. I haven't traveled the world. I've been some fun places and I'd like to go a few more. So I think, understanding more about how other people live in other places and really doing some travel, but also, again, exploring me. What's next for me. And then the third piece is regenerative. What is it? What is my impact on being regenerative? I am all about Mother Nature. And that doesn't sound like a financial person at all. But let me tell you that the answers that we need for the future are already there. They're in our environment. Right. Mother Nature is a true teacher. And if I have a choice between having a cocktail or going on a walk in the woods, I'll go for a walk in the woods. If I have a choice between playing in the dirt and going to a social event, I'll play in the dirt. We have so much to learn, and we have to reconnect to our soil. In my home, we do no pesticides, no herbicides.
Yeah.
We need to re-energize ourselves in our environment. In this little space where I have my office, it's the same thing. We have, we put in when we did the little bit of landscaping we had, we put in all local plants that are low maintenance and don't need, and actually we didn't put we had some cement that we took out so we could have more green space to have, because we're in the urban core and there's, sometimes we have a little flooding here and there from
plus the heat sink. You don't want the heat to go elsewhere, right? Through the soil. Yeah.
So what is mine to do? What am I capable of doing? And how do I bring my intentionality to delivering on that?
I love it. Mind, time, and money freedom. I think you've achieved all of those, and you continue to explore how to get the most out of it. That's amazing, Mackey. A last question for you is, we try to do something a little bit different with this podcast. We ask every single one of our guests to talk about their preferred or favorite cause or charity, so we can bring awareness to that. So we educate our listeners a little bit, maybe on some cause they've never heard of, or encourage them to participate, learn a little bit more, maybe even contribute. So what would that be for you, Mackey?
Well, my favorite cause is the ACLU and American Civil Liberties Union. As a woman, the way that they have taken on lack of choice for women in the country and in our individual states is really beautiful. And, they take care of people, making sure people still have their voice, or trying to, through the legal system. And it's just one of my near and dears.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that we need help on all fronts, and the ACLU has a very big bucket, and purposefully they have a very big bucket. So I agree with you. They've always been in my core stack of who I give to every year. The ACLU, when in doubt, the ACLU. I think they're a tremendous organization and a great fit, and you're the first one to mention them. So thank you for that. Tremendous. We loved having you today, Mackey. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Hannah and Caitlin. It's been a delight to spend an hour with you.